All right, let's get started. Why don't you start us off?
All right, guys. Anthony Angelillo, mortgage banker, been in the business now for about 20 years, and CEO, founder of Tag Team Nation, marketing tech company, certified partners now with HubSpot. And this show, I want to announce that we are going to be receiving another award for Educators of the Year. So those that are joined now and those that are watching later on, we want to give a big shout out to the board of Miami Realtors and YPN, Women's Council, everybody that's helped us groom to the position we're in right now. We truly are blessed, and we thank you, all of you that are attending these shows and watching as we are Educators of the Year. Those of you that have not conducted business with me, I'd love to start the new year, and we do very well in terms of our streamlined process. And let's make it a productive year. 2022 is the year to either adapt or die, which we'll go into. Go ahead, Melinda.
Hi, everyone. Melinda Grimaldi, real estate and title attorney with Grimaldi Law Firm and the Closers Title Insurance Agency. Super excited for today's show. Last weekend, I was in New Orleans for a coaching quarterly meeting with the program that I'm in. And we talked about change. We talked about how the world is changing. And even if outside factors are really impacting you, you must always be ready for change. Just as you're about to get comfortable, the universe loves to flip it on you. So we're going to talk about change today. And I want to start off by I kind of just mentioned it. The world is changing. Rates are going up. Inflation is up. The market's shifting. People are doing business differently. The weather's changing. I feel like the weather is different than it used to be. That's
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
I don't know, like the environment is changing. Everything's changing. Like, I think big. We don't see it day by day, but year by year, there's definitely big changes. Inflation is through the roof in the last 12 months. So that's just some of the stuff. Never mind like the changes that are happening because of COVID, and not all changes are bad, right? Change is not a bad thing. Change is just a part of life, whatever it is. I think as a business owner, because if we're talking about business right now, as a business owner, you need to be able to see change. You need to be able to almost try to predict the change, pay attention, look out for signs of change, and don't fight it. Now, I'm talking about some big changes, little changes, but you can't be afraid of change, because there's going to be days where something's going to work, and then the next day it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Marketing strategies, sales strategies, things with your team, whatever the case may be, you're going to need to change because the effectiveness of what you're doing is not the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes complete sense. And I can give you several scenarios that we've done recently that just, based on the data alone, we're looking at how we needed to change in order to market, in order to get more engagement, in order to close. So it's consistently grooming yourself and really understanding, what you're trying to implement. And I believe change is good. I look at change as a positive, because if you look at it as a negative, then what you put out to the universe obviously is going to come back. So I try to stay positive. Don't get me wrong. I am stressed out about a lot of things. I'm human, but at the same time, it's, and I got Melinda to be my psychiatrist. But I mean, what I'm saying here is that it's good. You should look everything as a positive. What's the positive? How do you implement new systems in order to change to see the result that you're looking for? And really, are you giving it all? I mean, have you seen the opportunity that you're trying to seek in order to receive the reward at the end, whether it's a close-in or if it's talking to a client or if it's marketing or if it's anything financially, personally? The change, I believe, is good. I also think that if you don't change and you become stale, like the water that I'm looking at, flat, it's stagnant, it's just it's dead, like you got to adapt or die. Like that's it. Like sometimes you're force placed into change. Like with COVID, people had to get on Zoom meetings. Some people didn't like them. Some people, loved them, but others needed to really, change and to implement that in order to still service a business. So
I have some really good quotes I want to share, and we could talk about them. The change we dread most may contain our salvation. Barbara Kingsolver. The reality is, if you are pushing back on changing in the way business is being done, or in the way that you see the industry going, for example, you may be killing yourself slowly. You really need to embrace the reality that things are going to be changing, and you must change with it to be able to survive and keep up, right? So evolution, it's exactly like evolution, right? In the evolution of human beings, the evolution of animals, it's in nature did that to be able to adapt to our environment at the time. So you need to be evolving as a person, as a business owner, as a realtor, as a lender, as an attorney, to be able to adapt. You need to the changes, to what's happening, to what's coming, right? So the important part is to see the need for a change before it has to be done right now. You know what I mean? So you kind of almost gotta look
like forecasting.
You gotta forecast. You gotta have projections. You gotta be paying attention.
So what's crazy is we just had a meeting, and Adam and myself and Brian, we were talking about how we're going to take a 17% decrease in refis. We're going to see that. So that's going to project that we're going to actually be about 20 million below our target. That's a big number. So we're adjusting accordingly. Now, granted, there's people that are still going to do cash out refinances because they have equity now, but rates are nowhere near where they were, and they're continuously going up. In March, they're going to really creep up high. So inflation's definitely real. But that being said, we adjusted all of that, and so forecasting, knowing the data and understanding from a business level, we're making this as an example here. That's important, understanding that we're going to definitely take a bath in refis. We're not going to do any refis, too much of them. It was great while it lasted, and now that sale is set. So, understanding your numbers, like we always talk about on DC, that's very important. And then forecasting and going back and saying, all right, what are we projecting for the future? Well, if the Feds are announcing the rates are going to go up, well, what's that going to look like in 6 months to 12 months from now? So it's something that agents should look at. Will it turn into a buyer's market? You know what I mean? What will happen then? We're in a seller's market now.
What do you see as happening? I see that with rates going down, you're going to have not as many buyers in the pool, and therefore there won't be as high of a demand. I don't think this is going to be an huge economic problem like it was, let's say, previously. But I think that the rates going down will have a trickle effect to the demand, and thereafter will settle the pricing. Rates going up. Sorry, will remove some of the buyers that were in the game before, might not be in the game anymore, because that increases the cost of a mortgage and your ability to qualify, right? So then from there, it's going to
absolutely
less buyers are available. That means that there's going to be, instead of 100 people waiting at the open house, maybe there's going to be 30, right? Maybe there's going to be 50. Less competition to get those properties. That craziness we've seen will settle itself. Prices will settle themselves. And that's what we could predict for as that's what I'm predicting, right? As we go along, I don't predict.
I think you're spot on that.
I think there's equity in the properties right now, so there's not going to be one of those problematic, I have no money to pay my mortgage, but the cost of living is going up, so businesses are going to have to pay their employees. I'm going to have to pay their employees more, which means they're going to have to charge more, which means it's like a everything is dependent on each other. So that will be the whole thing, kind of creating this higher cost of living. And we haven't increased, minimum wage. And I know it's starting to go up now. In Florida, it's going to start going up. The reality is it needs to go up to sustain what we're doing. And inflation is what happened when the government starts giving out money. When they give it out for free, that's just the reality, right? So that's what's going on right now. I have another quote here for you.
Yeah.
It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. Charles Darwin. So it doesn't matter what you're doing right now. If you're paying attention, you're focusing on what's coming. We can't predict with this exactly with a crystal ball, but we can see what's going on. You adjust, right? You're like, okay, our refi business is not going to be like it was in the past few years. We need to make sure we up the ante and market harder for the purchase part of the business, right? So that's all part of it. If the technology, if the economy goes this way, maybe the dollar is going to drop. If the dollar drops, what's going to happen? You're going to have more foreign money coming in, because it's cheaper to buy now for them, right? So they're going to start buying more. You got to think about who moved my cheese, right? Where's the cheese?
That's awesome.
Great book to pick it up now. We don't really know exactly how it's going to look, but the reality is real estate always moves. You just got to know where it is, pay attention, be responsive to what's happening, and go where the action is, right? So it's going to require some pivoting. It's going to require some responsiveness, right? It was exactly what you did, right? Be responsive to change. So I think that's a great strategy.
And then also the other thing too, that I think agents should be aware of, it's not that there's not going to be refis. There's going to be opportunity to do cash out refis, right? Because people are going to need that money in order to pay bills or credit cards or debt that they might consume themselves, or maybe just want to do upgrades to possibly sell the home. So the marketing strategy for the next several months should be that type of strategy. Hey, we noticed that you inquired, or you're interested in purchasing a home, or you're possibly going to refinance your home. These are the variables of what you can do in order to take out cash out. Possibly put marketing out there to captivate the attention of that audience and really engage with that on social media, or anywhere, email blast. But that's what we're doing, and that's what we're going to be focusing on is our database. I keep speaking to many agents, and we have consultations Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Every single agent, quote, tells me, Anthony, we're making money on our database. Like we're fostering our business. So that tells me, okay, well, change is coming. Not too many people are spending money on leads anymore. Yes, leads are there, Zillow's there, all that, realtor.com. But now people are noticing that, man, the money's really in the follow-up. So now I'm going to start really focusing on my database, like us, like the people I talk to, the people that I'm always following, and that's type of change that I'm seeing. People are now focusing on their data. They're understanding that, it's a follow-up game, and that the past 2 years they made money from talking to the people that they've closed, and clients that really, respect them as a professional. So we're seeing that as well.
Because these individuals that are focusing now that way, it's probably because they looked at where their business came from. They reflected on where they spent their money and their energy and said, shit, I'm spending all this time and money to buy leads when all my closed business is coming from my sphere. So,
you said that in many episodes. You talk about that all the time. Because,
so I mentioned this yesterday. I taught a class on business planning yesterday. There's so many free tools, free, low cost, low tech ways to grow your business. I don't know why you shouldn't be spending money until you maximize all the free and low tech, low cost options for your business. Then you start spending money, and you need to be ready to reflect, right? Pivot based on what you see as the results from the money spent, because it's not just, so easy just to say, okay, let me throw some money on it, and it's going to make me money. It's not that simple. So I have another quote here. Progress.
Go ahead. I got one too.
Progress is impossible because, okay, hold on. Let me backtrack. We don't want to scare you guys. Like, the purpose is not to scare you guys. The purpose is to inspire you guys about and the way you look at change, because forget about all the market stuff we just discussed, just because we happen to be in real estate and see things, pivoting maybe. But as a business owner, you see a lot of these business coaches talking to their clients and saying, you need to do, yeah, but I always did it this way. Yeah, but this is how I do it. This is how I like to do it. You have to open your ears. If you want to grow, old ways won't get you new results. You gotta keep pivoting. So look, Anthony and I, for example, with the show is a perfect example. We gotta pivot every so often. We gotta change how we do things. We gotta change the script. We gotta change the way we promote. We gotta change the way we talk about it. We gotta change the topics that we're talking about, because old ways will not get us the results, right? So we have some planning meetings coming up to kind of create more content and do different things. So the quote that I want to read to you now with that caveat is, progress is impossible without change. And those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. George Bernard Shaw. So, you could look at your stuff, things that worked so good in your business last year or the year before might not work so good this year, next year, the years to come. Right?
Why do you think that is?
Because people change, the economy changes, technology changes, the market changes. There's so many factors. Or people are just fed up of hearing the way you speak about something. Maybe you need to flip it around. Like, even my pitch when I'm in front of a crowd that I sponsored or speaking or whatever, and I talk about my companies, I need to switch it up now because everyone's heard it that way. So I want to change it up because I don't want their eyes to glaze over, when I'm talking about it. So everything needs to be changed, refreshed, updated based on facts, based on projections, based on trial and error.
Yeah. And let me just elaborate on that too. I want everyone in the room and everyone that's watching, yes, you should change, absolutely, and you should adapt, especially with technology and things that that you need to do in order to scale your business, without a doubt. But if you have something that has a high ROI and it's working for you, we're not saying just get rid of it. We're saying tweak the changes. Like, for example, yesterday I did a video that will probably be posted today or tomorrow, it depends. And it talks about how someone randomly called me out of the blue and just, pretty much said, look, I'm shopping you. What's your best rate? Who the hell am I even speaking to at this point? And so, we're going to now produce content that bases around people that are making mistakes in terms of how they're delivering the message. And so I think that will attract agents' attention to say, wow, that's happened to me. So see how I'm changing the content that I'm sending out on social media. Not that I'm not sending out content, I'm consistently sending content out, but now I need to tweak things in order to see a higher engagement. That's what we're talking about here. Melinda's saying, if you've got a high ROI on something that's working, don't completely, change that over, but, have a makeover, possibly tweak the marketing. And that's why I love the marketing that we have access to. Go ahead.
Monitoring your effectiveness of everything, right? You gotta pay attention.
Yeah.
It's hard because I could tell you myself, it's very hard because I'm doing so many things. So to pay attention, you got to find ways to block the time to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
I think this last weekend, we talked about all these different changes we must be implementing in our structured type of business based on the economy, based on that. But then realizing that, regardless of what's going on the outside, you can't be afraid of change. You must embrace it. You must expect it. You must know, like, even when things are gelling so good, there's going to be an opportunity. Like, I can give you an example. There was a point last year. I'm like, wow, the team's running so smoothly. There's like, everything's gelling. And then we had some team turnover, right? Some employees left, some employees were told to leave, et cetera, et cetera. So what happened? What happened is that great feeling, like I knew it was going to come. Like, when is this great feeling going to end? Right? I knew it was going to come.
That's
My
funny.
mistake is not realizing like how quickly it was going to come, or since I knew it was going to come, I should always be looking for talent. So now how I am changing my strategy is every single position we have for the company, I will be searching, and I have all posts now for all positions listed and promoting for it, because you never know when you're going to need it. And you never know when you find that good person through all the needle in the haystack, because that's what it is, finding someone. So I will always be hiring now. Not that I'm going to hire someone all the time.
But interview them and then keep them in your, calendar saying, all right, maybe I can't hire you yet now, or, maybe in 6 months you possibly will. Or if something, God forbid, happens, you have that. Yeah.
You already have the hiring machine going. So that's just one example of where I learned I need to always be ready for that change, because we can't really afford to have less people on deck. It ends up falling all on me. And then I'm working till waking up at 4 a.m. And then, that's not like, I don't want to do that anymore. But, so that's just an example of where I saw it, the reality of one day change was going to happen, because that's how teams are. There's some people that come, everyone stays, but they only stay for, everything has a beginning and an end. Right. So that was one example. But paying attention to that and pivoting for that, because I just need to systematize my hiring and onboarding, just like I systematize everything else in my life. So for the business, especially. I have one more quote. I love this quote. I love this quote, not just for this topic, but for every single thing ever in my life. It's an Abraham Lincoln quote, actually. But I heard it this weekend, and I'm just like, phew. You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today.
That's deep. That's good.
Like, you see something that you know is coming. Don't avoid it and think it's going to go away. Right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, do you want to feel the pain of the work you have to put in today, or the regret you're going to have tomorrow of not doing it? Right.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. A lot of times pivoting and adjusting is painful, because we're doing new things. We have to learn new ways. We have to change how we've been doing things for so long. Right. But it's painful mentally, sometimes physically. Right. So
what about this scenario? So a new agent comes in and they know they have weaknesses, because this is one of the things that I want to talk about. How do they implement change in their life? Like, I think it's hard to, as an individual, I think it's difficult to realize that you have a weakness, and then you have to possibly change either your attitude or the way you look at things, or even possibly say, a lot of people blame others. I see that a lot in terms of real estate. Their process wasn't good, or, the borrower, lazy, blah, blah, blah. And then I really look at the bigger picture, and I'm like, I don't think so. I'm not going to say anything, but I think it's possibly this and that. I feel like that happens a lot to newer agents, also veteran agents as well. But I guess changing the weakness that you have in order to have it become a strength, I think that's very difficult to do. To acknowledge the fact that you need to change your delivery. Maybe it's an email that you sent out. Maybe it's a message or a text message, or it's a bad habit that you have. That type of change, I think, is what mindset. Understanding it.
Well, mindset is a whole other conversation.
2 hour. 2 hour conversation.
I'm very much fully engulfed in it again. Mindset. Not that I wasn't before, I always was, but being back into coaching myself, it's kind of at the forefront, because, you see people that are struggling through things that I've struggled through, or I'm seeing people that have gotten to places that I haven't reached yet. And the key in the progression is always the mindset, because the other stuff is just doing the things you got to do to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
But why aren't you doing the things you got to do to get to where you want to be? Right? Why? And that
I don't
is
know.
the question.
That's the question. That's the question, is why aren't they doing it? Why, are they not? New Year's resolution. How many people fell off their New Year's resolution?
I didn't make one.
Guarantee you.
I didn't make one. I didn't make a resolution. I just have goals and standards that some days I'm better than others, but to put myself something that I know is not practical for me, I didn't do it like that. I have my business plan with strategic strategies for all the things in there. And I have my lifestyle minimum standards that I put for myself, that there's days that I really fail at that. Since I came back from my trip, I've been failing at my minimum standards for myself.
What do you mean? What's the minimum standard? Like what type of that? Like the daily discipline?
For myself, like I haven't worked out. I haven't moved my body at all. I haven't stretched. I haven't done my normal skincare routine because I'm feeling stressed. I came back from out of town. I'm rushing through everything, right? To get to the office and just, get back into routine. I know that there's, but there's still like certain minimum standards that I put for myself that I say to myself, this is not acceptable. Yet but I'm tolerating it. Tolerating it. So, one of the big things that they're talking about on the program is, what are you tolerating that should not, and realizing that you're tolerating it is the first step. This is not acceptable. It could be with other people. It could be within your business. It could be in yourself personally. What are you tolerating?
Interesting. That's interesting. I think I'm the opposite for 2022. Even though I have been waking up a little bit later, and I don't know why that's happening, but I do have a lot on my mind. So I'm assuming that maybe stress. Who knows? But let's talk about vision. I think adapting and seeing something. I'm a big believer on this. In fact, I have this right here on my desk. This is a little postcard, and this was the place that I wanted to live when I moved here, and now I'm living here. But I think, vision board and having goals and changing and adapting the situation in order to hit the goal, that's big. But if you can't see it, and opening up a business like you with Closer's Title, like you envisioned all of it. You saw all of that. You even said all the stuff that you were going to do. And yeah, you had a business plan and all of that, but you envisioned all of that. And so therefore you made that that change in order to adapt, in order to open that company. I feel like
that was hard. That was hard for me to launch a second company and get everybody used to there being two companies and having the systems built out to have two companies being run by the same team was hard. But I needed to.
So how did you adapt in that situation?
I didn't adapt. I just excuse me. I just did the damn thing. I hustled through it.
How did you, I know that one of the challenges, because this is good to talk about, one of the challenges was, is it going to intervene with Grimaldi Law Firm, prices, whatever the case may be? I didn't see that at all. I think service levels went up, and I would have paid a premium for those service levels. So talk about inflation. I don't care if it was $200-300 more because you had to pay for staff. It was the service that I wanted. So I guess that was a topic that was hard for you. And that was just being able to sell.
People were so used to doing it a certain way. And I had to teach them how to do it differently now, because we were pivoting and kind of bifurcating. If you want one way, it's going to be here. And if you want another way, it's going to be here. But the reality is, the only thing to do when you're going through hell is to keep going. So like sometimes it's like super hard. Like that's what it is. Like it's so hard. There's so much, but you just got to keep going. And I finished and I executed and I did it. But that was a huge change for me. But in the end, it's a pivotal change because it allowed me for more flexibility and more different service options for different preferences. So just keep going. But I kept going, not like without paying attention. Does that make sense? You have to pay attention and pivot. There's certain things that I thought I was going to do one way, but I changed because I had to pivot to how the reactions were, right? So understanding when
Interesting.
you're
Yeah,
doing stuff, paying attention.
So let's talk about paying attention. I think a lot of the emails that I see from real estate agents, I always give them constructive criticism. There's a gentleman that we started doing business with, and I just asked him, I said, look, I think I would, if I'm in your position, I would change the grammar in here and I would present it this way. So collaborating with your partners, that's crucial. And then also, the marketing company that we have, that's, the emails that we send out, we were just talking about this 2 days ago, understanding, hey, look, this is going to be a problem if we don't, set proper expectations up front. People are going to question the ability of the service and why it's not being rendered. So it's just, focusing on you. And like you said, paying attention. Paying attention is key. That's the lesson and the word of the day right there, is paying attention and really understanding that, look, if you see something happen and it's consistently happening, you need to change that, and you need to try to control the situation because that it's not right, or it could be done a different way. And then with our business too, with our intake forms, the short form, that's changed. And I'm noticing a lot of agents that I had heart-to-hearts with, there's several agents, they are having a difficult time using it, even though they love it, but it's just trying to get into the routine because they're so used to just sending that name to an email, and just, that's it. That's not going to get the job done. We need better, information, more data in order to service that client better. So see, now I have to go back and really explain and tell them the value and have them really visualize all of that. So see, that's part of changing too. It's interesting though. It's interesting. Where's another quote? I got another one. You cannot control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Jim Rohn.
That's a good one.
I love that.
That's a really good one. Because the wind's coming from this direction, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing you can control is your sail, right? Your direction, your choices, your actions, your point of view, your mindset. So I love that. Good stuff. Anthony, any final thoughts before we wrap up for today?
Nothing. I just think that change is good. If you're not changing, you're not growing. Adversity brings opportunity. We know that. We talked about that in many episodes. Paying attention is key to everything that you're doing. And then just understanding that if you're not making that change and you're being stubborn about the situation, saying, I just disagree, or maybe you agree to disagree, then talk to that person and ask them and get more, more involved in the situation, so that way you can collaborate. There's many agents that I've spoken to, and I told this to Melinda, and I just spoke to one of the agents recently, that we spoke in the beginning of conducting business, and we then adjusted the way we conducted business, and now it's a match made in heaven. So don't be afraid to approach the people you're doing business with, and especially the borrower. If the borrower is controlling the situation, don't be afraid to speak and say, look, I'm a professional. I could definitely help you out, but please, let me do my job. And I know all of you have been through that situation. So that's part of change too. And I just want to say that you got to speak. Like the post that I made today and created today, it's not what you say, it's how you deliver it, how you say it. Don't be afraid to speak up. Like you've got to do that. Melinda tells me a lot of things that we need to improve on, vice versa. Sometimes I think she's got, an amazing system. And we were just talking about that to someone who's joining us and why we use her services, because the systems are so amazing. So it's just really collaborating and understanding each other and how to grow with each other, and change is everything. If you're not changing, you're not going to grow, period. So.
Ditto. Definitely. So as you continue the rest of your day, I want you to take a moment to consider what change you are resisting in your personal life, what change you are resisting in your business, and understand where the resistance is really coming from. Are you just afraid of what the change will bring? you know, or are you just afraid or of a mistake, right? Are you afraid or are you feeling uncertain? Understanding that will shed light as to where that resistance is coming from. And then once you know where it's coming from, it's easier to fix. So with that, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and you can catch us here on Damage Control every Thursday. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take
Have a
care.
great
Bye-bye.
bye.